How's it going, everyone? Landon with LMR.com. Today I'll be taking a look at KYB's OE replacement shocks and struts and how you install them into your Fox Mustang. KYB's OE replacement shocks and struts are going to be for the Fox Mustang owner out there wanting to restore their ride back to OE quality. This KYB strut is calibrated to compensate for worn suspensions and designed to help restore the OE performance for normal driving conditions. The components and valving were specifically designed for Fox body applications so that the build quality closely matches or exceeds the original equipment. The strut is going to be filled with a low pressure nitrogen and feature a twin tube design which will improve handling and restore the ride quality in your Fox Mustang. Now, in case you were unaware, the 1987 to 1993 V8 cars had their own strut. Now, the only difference between the years and engine offerings was the thickness of the spindle. Now, if you look closely at the mounting bracket on the strut, you'll find that the 87 to 93 V8 strut had a little bit different opening. On that note, 79 to 86 V8 cars and all 79 to 93 four-cylinder cars will utilize the same strut. KYB's rear shock will feature a monotube design, which makes it a perfect OE replacement to restore the factory ride quality and improve handling. This shock is going to fit all 1979 to 1993 Fox Mustangs. Now, each shock and strut is currently available in either a kit or by themselves. Now, KYB is going to include new strut shaft, two strut mount retaining nuts with the front struts, and they also include new upper shock hardware for the rear shocks. Now, other items I would recommend when installing new shocks and struts into your Fox Mustang is strut to spindle retaining bolts, an upper strut mount kit, and new bump stops. These are only going to complement your new parts, and of course they're going to replace rusted and deteriorated components. To begin the install, support the car via a lift or jack stands. Remove all four wheels. Be sure and support the rear of the car at the torque boxes. This will allow full control over the rear end so that you can remove the rear shocks. Starting at the front, remove the brake caliper slide pins with a 17mm socket. Loosen but do not remove the strut to spindle retaining hardware. The nut is 24mm and the bolt is 21mm. Support the lower control arm underneath the spring perch. Spray a penetrating catalyst on the strut shaft retaining nut. Loosen and remove the nut with a 21mm socket. Remove the upper strut mount washer, bushing, and spacer. Remove the lower nut and bolt from the strut and spindle. Pull back on the caliper and then remove the top nut and bolt. Now you can go ahead and remove the strut from the car. Remove the dust boot and bump stop. If the factory dust boot and bump stop is reusable, remove them and then transfer to the new KYB strut. In our case, we're replacing these components. Carefully pry open the clamp and slide it off of the dust boot. Remove the dust boot shell and bushing. Go ahead and take this time to clean up the boot. Install the new shell into the dust boot. Reposition the clamp and then squeeze to retighten. Install the bump stop onto the strut in the same orientation. Slide the assembled dust boot over the strut, followed by the spacer. Install the new KYB strut into the car. While holding the strut with one hand, position the upper strut mount bushing and washer over the shaft. Thread on the supplied nut from KYB. Align the bolt holes on the strut with the spindle. Install the factory hardware in the same orientation or replace it. Remove the jack from the control arm. Fully tighten the strut to spindle retaining nuts. Reinstall and retighten the brake caliper slide pins. Go ahead and fully tighten the strut shaft retaining nut. Do the same for the other side. Moving to the rear of the car, loosen and remove just the nut from the lower shock. Use a 15mm box end wrench on the bolt head and 18mm socket on the nut. Jack up on the lower control arm to establish some preload. Remove the trunk carpet if you own a coupe or convertible, or the access cover if you have a hatchback. Loosen and remove the shock shaft retaining nut. Remove the bolt from the shock and then remove the shock from the car. Be sure and remove the upper shock bushing and washer from inside the trunk or hatch. Install one of the provided washers over the shock shaft, followed by a bushing. Position the new shock into place. Lower the jack to align the bolt holes. Reinstall the lower hardware and loosely tighten. Place the other bushing over the shock shaft, followed by the washer. Fully tighten the thicker 9/16 nut. Install the thinner 9/16 jam nut. Now you can fully tighten the lower shock hardware. Go ahead and do the same for the other side. Once the shocks are installed, reinstall the access covers or trunk carpeting. Double check your work, reinstall the wheels, and then get the car on the ground. Take it for a spin, and then you're all finished. Now, as far as installation goes here, guys, I would honestly set aside a few hours to get this one done. A good socket set, some jacks and jack stands is all you're gonna need to replace your shocks and struts. If you were replacing severely worn components, I would strongly recommend running the car down to your local alignment shop just to have them double check everything. If for some reason you do need some additional adjustment, you can pick up some camber bolts or a set of caster camber plates to get your alignment properly dialed in. To see more how-to and review videos covering industry-leading products, be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video, and don't forget to turn on notifications. While you're at it, check out our other videos, and don't forget to shop lmr.com for all things 1979 to present Mustang and SVT Lightning.